What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Evening Alpha. I am your host, the magnificent Todd. Is I. And you never know what to say, right? You're just like, me! Who am I? Well, my name is Todd Wanish. I am a 26-year veteran of the comic and animation industries, formerly Marvel, formerly Cartoon Network, formerly Adult Swim. And what is Evening Alpha? Well, it is our chance as a group to kind of chill out at the end of the day and reflect on the day's news. And it's very special nights like tonight, we actually get to talk to other founders in the space, because I think one of the things that's so important for us as a community is to actually really get to know the people behind the scenes. You know, I think fortunately for us, I think the age of anonymous founders is slowly coming to an end. Certainly, there's always people that need to be protected behind the scenes for whatever reason, because there's still a lot of bias out there against Web3. But the more we can be, face front and out there and talking and getting a chance to know each other as a group, and getting a chance for the groups to know us as founders, I think that benefits everybody. So we have an awesome guest tonight. We have Ryco and Joe from Unethical Cupids. Is it unethical or unethical?
Unethical, but we're playing with the ETH. Little shout out to Instagram.
Awesome. Well, welcome, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got chat going. So before we jump in, we'll just say hi to chat real quick. We got J-Raw, who popped in early to say that he couldn't be tonight, but he was saying he'd given us some love. What's up? Willie D, what's up, man? How are you? Happy Tuesday. Absolutely. Knack Murphy, welcome. What up? Welcome.
Knack? Yeah.
Mastiff, welcome. Woohoo. Hype, welcome. Woot woot. Doge Vibes, hey yo, welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up. Carrots, doing some evening work tonight remotely, so perfect night to have the streaming while working away. Awesome. That's what we want. We want you to just hang out, chill out, work out, and have fun, because that's what we're gonna do. Dusty, welcome, Dusty. Dusty's here as always. He says, make sure to drop something in chat to be rewarded in BAMF, our Discord reward token. That goes for everybody, even if you're new. You get free BAMF. If you don't know what BAMF is, you can Google it. It's fine. No, really, it's okay. It won't totally destroy your browser. Massive says Taco Tuesday, and April says, hi everyone, welcome April. How are you?
What's up, April?
So yeah, guys, welcome. I'm dying to know more about Unethical Cupids and Road to Rome. Like, I was actually really surprised that you guys had actually already done an animated show, which was like huge props. I gotta say that in advance, like huge props for like actually going full Richard Williams and actually animating an animated pilot that's like 40 minutes long, you know?
Yeah, we went a little crazy with the pilot, but yeah, the episode 2 and episode 3 kind of set the tone a little bit better with the animation style, the pacing, 15-minute length type of situation we're going with going forward. But yeah, we appreciate it.
I'm sure we'll get into it, but like, yeah, the pilot initially was actually like designed basically just as like a spec pilot to pitch Hollywood, you know, because we'd already done the circuit, got feedback, and did the whole thing. So initially the pilot was like very full length. Obviously we didn't anticipate it being, 36-minute runtime, 2-minute credits. It was just spiraled out of control. And by the time we realized that it was way too late to grab it and cut it down, in retrospect, we would go back and, cut it up a little bit. But I mean, it all worked out well, and it was a great learning experience. And, it was just such a good learning experience. Like we took so much from that. We put it into episode 2, cut everything down. But man, the pilot's a fucking whale.
I could just see it now. I could see I could see the team, guys, I got this new idea. We should really have a scene where the character does this, where Cornelius is doing this. And you're like, but the storyboards are already 250 pages deep. Well, this will only be 5 more pages. It's fine.
I swear, our artist wanted to kill us. There was one scene that took me a month. He's like, scene 16, never again.
Towards the end, he was definitely like, guys, I'm struggling here down the stretch. And we're like, please, we're so close. And then after we did it, and and like the dust settled. We had actually had so much fun. We were like, let's run it back. But then he was like shorter, and we are like, yeah, we know faster is funnier. But yeah, I think we kind of have the flow of it down now a little bit.
That's awesome, man. No, 38 minutes is anything. I mean, people who don't animate have this still have a I mean, it's not anyone's fault. Like, they don't really know how it works. Like, they kind of know what's hand drawn, and they kind of will still ask you like, oh, you still do that by hand? Like, doesn't the computer just do it for you?
Right.
And I think people have this misconception that animation, like a minute of animation, you can do that in like, half a day or something,
Right.
Oh, it just takes you 22 minutes of animation. Like, wouldn't that be just like a week of work or something?
Right.
And you're like, no, it's like 4 or 5 years, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, and then I remember like when Joe and I actually first started writing the scripts for Roads to Rome, like it just happened like very organically. So I was doing stand-up in New York, Joe was doing stand-up down south in Miami, and we had been collaborating on like a little sketch podcast that was like wild and probably should be scrubbed from the internet, is what I was saying. And so we were collaborating on those things, and then Joe just called me one day and was like, hey, you want to write like an adult cartoon? And like, we grew up on South Park. We're like huge South Park guys. We're huge Rick and Morty fans. And, obviously like Family Guy stuff. So, we kind of wanted to go with something episodic, but also with like a little bit more of a backstory. And we kind of just settled on this Roads to Rome thing. And really we dove in without knowing much. Like I think if we had known, like how ridiculously difficult animation was, and like how expensive it was, and just like the entire production process, like thank God we didn't, because we might not have done it. It was like we had just gotten to a point where we'd spent so long on the scripts that we were like, we just want to see this thing. So let's just make it, and then we kind of figured everything else out from there. But like when you talk about like people not knowing animation, like that was us. Like we didn't know,
Yeah.
We learned the hard way too, I mean, even with writing scripts too, it was like a 5-year process of like being stand-up comedians and writing jokes in this short form live type of situation, to where we're writing out scripts and learning how to properly format a script and make it concise, which obviously we missed the first time. And learning all these things, and it was a process over like years to like really get our groove going with the series, and now we're definitely hit our groove with it.
But that's how you cut your chops though too, right? Like you kind of, maybe it's a sometimes I think it can be, especially, I mean, whether it's animation or whether it's Web3 or NFTs or whatever, like kind of, not knowing what you're getting yourself into is a hallmark of actually being able to get it done.
Totally.
Like it's like you get to the point where it takes you, like you guys said, like, it's like, oh, we spent so long cutting our chops and getting the script ready and actually making it something that is readable and funny and that we actually like. And by that point, you see the whole thing in your head. And so then you're like, well, let's just start it. And then, by the time you start it, by the time you're burning out and you're like, what the fuck did we just do? But you're kind of too deep into it. And so you have no choice but to continue, you're like, well, we'll just finish it,
Well, and totally. The crazy thing is it's not just like, it's the whole, it's that on repeat over and over again throughout the whole creative process, because it's not just like that. It's like we had written this series and then we're like, okay, we're too deep into it. We have to just make it. Let's just make it and be a web series. So then we make it and we're, a web series. And then it's like, well, now here's this unbelievable Web3 opportunity. So then you dive headfirst into that, and then it's doing it again. Then you're cutting your chops again, building out a project and learning about NFTs and learning about, this entire like crazy space. And then it's just like a constant process of like one thing leads to another, but you're constantly needing to learn how to do it, and you're constantly needing to like pick up all these little skills and like have a million failures, even if like I feel like in launching a project there's like a little million micro failures, what I mean? As long as you don't make a huge mistake, you might have a shot.
I think it's about being able to deal with those million little failures too, and not be like, because there's been times, especially at the beginning, because we launched our Discord in October and like slowly built our community over time. And, we had been researching NFTs for 5-6 months at that point, but still like putting a project out there into the ether was a totally different game. And from October, for the first few months, we were like running around with our heads cut off. It was crazy, but it started working out.
Yeah, I think that's like, that's the same thing here. We started working on adult fantasy in early March of last year. And we very early on, we decided to kind of do something completely different, and we ended up inventing our own technology for. We have these. So the adult fantasy NFTs actually have a grading mechanic. So like graded comic books, like if you've ever seen like graded, like the kinds you see on auction sites.
Right.
And what we did is we invented a mechanic to not just to replicate that, but to have a little bit of that Adult Swim, Cartoon Network sense of humor. We have a de-aging mechanic. So on mint, when everybody minted, it was a 0.5, which is like trash. Like it's poor quality. It looks like it got hit by a truck. So everyone's NFT has like water damage and like scratches, and it's like really busted looking. And then over the course of time, the algorithm on the back end does a random roll basically, and chooses at random points in times to de-age. So over the course of 4 years, each NFT will de-age and the grade will improve. And so you don't actually know what card, you don't know the rarity of your card really until the end of the cycle. So it's like the world's slowest marathon.
That's so cool. Right? I love that.
But we had no fucking clue of like, what to do with it. So we said, yeah, let's just do this. And we figured out that we had the technical skill to do it. And then we had the decision of like, well, do we, especially like March of last year, like there wasn't like a guide to how to launch a Discord or anything, like at that point in time, the standard was really like Bored Ape Yacht Club and Pixel Vault, like, because those guys had kind of just launched. And at that time, like Bored Ape Yacht Club had something like 2,000 people in their Discord. And that was like a smashing success. And we were like, awesome. And throughout the year, as we started trying to get these numbers, like the goalpost just kept moving. It was like 2,000, then 5,000, then 10,000, then, what is it now? Like 50,000 or 30,000? Like it's crazy. And so
20,000 bots.
Right. 20,000 bots. Yeah. We just need 10 real people to buy 1,000 NFTs each. Some investors. But yeah, like we had this like crazy slow burn for the Discord up until like the whitelist launch, and then it just kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. You guys who did the artwork? Because it's super cool.
Thanks. I did.
Did you really?
Oh,
yeah.
No way.
That's spectacular, man. Like hats off. I really like it. It gave me, like you said, like kind of like Adult Swim, but also like almost like a little Sin City kind of vibes.
Yeah.
I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, you got to look at this stuff. I was like, doesn't it kind of look like kind of like cool Sin City, colorful though? And she was like, oh, it's so sweet.
Thanks. Yeah, I was trying to go for like a Venture Brothers meets 90s X-Men.
Yeah. Right? I think you kind of nailed that.
And then for the cards, I was trying to putting the animation director hat on, because it's kind of hard to take off. I was like, well, our goal is we want this. I'm sure similar to you guys. Like there's we really want to have such a community, a huge community involvement in this, that I didn't want any kind of. It's very difficult to thread the needle, right? So I knew that any kind of style we come up with there's going to be some kind of desire from the community to keep that intact. But if you look at comics, so with animation, as you guys know, like once you create the character design or the series Bible, that's the character. Like every animator's job that comes after that is to match the style of the show perfectly. Like every artist gives up their whatever their house style is, their preferred way to draw to match your style, and they they use the elements you either pre-created if you're using a program like Flash or Toon Boom or whatever, or if it's hand drawn, they're like matching the drawing style. And with comics, it's the exact opposite. Like Spider-Man has a specific costume, but every single artist has the freedom to draw him in any way they see fit, right? As long as that character is approved and recognizable as Spider-Man. There's a cartoon version of Spider-Man. There's Todd McFarlane's detailed Spider-Man. There's all of these different, every artist has their own thumbprint style when it comes to drawing. And so when we created the kind of the idea of adult fantasy, I was like, well, I wanted to keep it in the realm, at least for the character design. I wanted to keep it in the realm where an animator could look at it and see everything clearly enough to animate, right? Maybe take out a little bit of the detail and still have the character that's ready to be animated. And then from the comic side or just in the illustration side, I wanted there to be enough detail where they could actually see some of the nitty gritty stuff. So the style, if you look at it and you think about it from an animation perspective, it's like slightly too detailed to be animated, right? Like just a degree too much, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit. It's very comic in that way.
Yeah,
very
It
comic.
almost gives me Space Ghost vibes, like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, where if you did animate it, it would be a little bit of that different movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I worked with Clay Croker when, like, right after he finished Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Oh, no way! Yeah, it's very much of that style. How cool is that?
Yeah. So thanks, guys. That makes sense. Appreciate it.
Like archery.
Yeah. Right. All right. Totally.
You know,
the same. It's that Atlanta vibe. You know.
Right. Really cool.
For sure. And but yeah, like I'm so curious. Like, you guys. So you take on this thing. You take on this venture, and you're like, okay, we're gonna start, like. There's a couple questions I have just as someone who's animated, right? Because I know how much work it is. So I'm like, you guys chose to do a pitch and came up with a concept, and I assume maybe came up with a project Bible. So you have, the synopsis, and here's the character turnarounds, and maybe some episodic breakdowns, some plots. So you're like, okay, so we can pitch this.
Right.
So usually that's where it ends. There are other teams and other pitches that I've been a part of over the years where the team pitching the pilot will create a 30-second pitch or maybe a couple of minutes. Very rarely do you see even the sort of the traditional Cartoon Network pitch, which is like those 10-minute bumps, right? Like if you look at some of the classic Cartoon Network bumps, or cartoons like Dexter's Laboratory or Powerpuff Girls, those things are 10-minute blocks, right? And they do that for a reason, right? It's more episodes, and they can break it up, and they can shuffle it, and it's more play, and it's easier to do. But you guys went like whole hog. So I'm curious as to what the decision, like in terms of like saying, okay, we have this pitch deck. Like, I guess my question is, like, were you shopping the pitch deck around in the Bible? Were you shopping the Bible around? People were like, hey, it looks cool, I'd love to see something. And then it just spiraled out? Or did you go through that process of like doing the Bible and getting feedback and then doing a trailer and people said they want more? Like, what was that process?
Yeah. So it was actually a process over, again, a number of years where, we had come up with the show. We had taken about a year and a half, 2 years to write the episodes. And then we actually, we had 2 episodes laid out. And then we worked with a animation company in Brooklyn, here in Brooklyn. And we came up with like a minute 30 kind of teaser for the concept. And we shopped that around quite a bit, along with the show Bible and the pitch deck and all of that. And we actually made some headway with a few companies, most notably Frederator. And we had a second round of pitch with them.
How would that go? We'd share stories on that.
I love them. They're honestly
they were great. Yeah.
Incredibly nice people. They obviously turned us down in the end, but they gave us some feedback that changed the trajectory of everything that we did.
Yep.
They pointed out like a mortal flaw in our show. We had a character who used to be with the main guy, Cornelius, and Professor Centaur was actually kind of like a background. But that character and Cornelius were essentially the same person. So there was like almost this boring, weird, we had to search for dialogue sometimes. And Emperor Elena wasn't the emperor. There was just these little tiny things that was like, of course it makes sense to do this. They kind of pointed that right out. And from there we were like, okay, we know exactly what to do. So we went back to the drawing board. We rewrote everything. The first and second episode, rewrote in entirety. And then at that point we were just kind of like, if we keep pitching this is going to keep happening. People are going to have feedback, different ideas. We love the concept. Let's just run with it and go crazy. Let's try to self-produce it as a web series. And if we can get a crowd going and people who are fans and monetize somehow and be able to keep making more episodes, that's the dream. And then Web3 eventually fell into our lap during that.
Well, and one really strange thing that happened, obviously, is like timing. Like, you can never really predict it. And when we pitched Frederator, that was January. That was like actually December of 2019. And then when they got back to us with like their loads of feedback, and like Joe said, like they were like wildly generous with their feedback. Like we went back and forth on a level that like they didn't owe us that at all. And it really did change things. And like we were both performing stand-up in New York at the time. And it's just interesting how like the timing works, because in March, I was doing, I I got like a residency at Broadway Comedy Club and to audition quarterly to get past, but then COVID happened, right? So if COVID hadn't happened, we probably wouldn't have had the time truly to rip up the entire show from scratch because everything was shut down, you know, like there was nothing we could do at the time. So we reformatted like completely everything, knowing pretty much that we were going to give it another pass at Hollywood. And then after we did it and like we created the pilot, you know, it was just one of those things where like we just couldn't get through doors. And at that point, we were kind of like, fuck it, let's just make it. We've been at this for 3.5 years. Let's just make it. Let's self-fund a pilot and then let's see what happens. Then we had fun with it. And then we were like, let's self-fund 2 more. That's pretty much takes us to the absolute limits of our bank account. And, you know, it's like, it's expensive. It's not easy. Our animators is like, he's underpaid. Our VOs are underpaid. We're not paid. And it's just one of those things where literally like then last, probably May, somebody close to us kind of approached us and they were like an OG ape and they were like, hey, listen, I think you guys might have accidentally started an NFT project. I'd like to tell you what an NFT is and kind of how that works. And then everything got really rolling. And that's how Unethical Cupid came around. And so it was just a really interesting, like timing wise, it was just very bizarre. And it just happened to work out in the show's favor. Because otherwise, you know, we both would have been performing stand-up and we probably wouldn't have had the time to, you know, rip everything up and kind of start over again. So it's just bizarre.
Yeah. One of the things I tell people, you know, I do a lot of advising with startups and founders. After the whole Cartoon Network, it's weird. Like the thing that got me into New York City tech, like the startup scene, like I've been like 10 years now, was actually like the animation stuff, like Cartoon Network and the Marvel stuff, because like people were so curious about that and so interested in IP and brand building that it got me in a position of like connecting with a lot of startup founders and just over the decades and time and having a lot of success with you know, helping mentor people. Like it's been fascinating. But one of the things that I tell them, you know, people think success is like a straight arrow. Like I start here and I go over here. And what it really looks like is this, right? And you kind of shoot out somewhere and it's like, well,
backwards, sometimes forwards.
Yeah. And it's like, if you have a mental image, people think you pull back the bow and arrow and you fire the arrow and it goes and hits a target and that's success. And really what success is that there's actually 25 different targets on the field. And as long as you hit one of them, it might not be the one you were aiming for, right? But as long as you hit one of them, you still have that success. And it's so interesting that we assume that the way to get our goals achieved is by going after the thing directly, right? When I spent as a kid, I mean, I spent my teens and my 20s going hardcore after Marvel. Hardcore. Like I was like, that was all I was gonna do. Comic art, man. So I mean, as a teenager, like when we were able to drive, when my friend who was like a couple years older than me got his driver's license, we would travel up and down the East Coast to comic conventions and do the whole portfolio review circuit, like pitch our comic, you know, our comic pages to editors. And I did that from the time I was 15 to the time I graduated college. So it was like 21, 22.
That's incredible.
And you know, I got better. And of course the feedback is fantastic and you meet a lot of people and all this. But the crazy thing is that, you know, like, and of course, like when I graduated college was right when the market crashed for the comic market. So the comic market was like, that was like death of Superman and then death of the comic industry. It was like, everyone was like doomsday. No one was hiring. Everyone was freaking out. So I was like, well, fuck it. And I had to start, that's kind of when I started the animation path. And if you had told me back then that the way to get into Marvel comics was by having a career in animation, I would have told you were absolutely nuts. Because that's why they brought me on, was the animation background and wanting me to kind of go through their archive of like intellectual property and craft a show out of it or craft a pitch out of it. Right. So I was at Marvel, like creating a pilot for Marvel, like just me and like an intern and like 2 people. Cause you know, they didn't, you would think they have a lot of money with the MCU, but that's a different studio. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting there with my wooden animation desk, like trying to beg for like paper clips and stuff. I have to ask HR for like a pencil sharpener, but you know, but kind of going through this process, you know, again, like if you had told me that like there is no template for this kind of stuff for life, for success, like you just have to kind of go and keep going and not stop. Like there is no entryway into Marvel, as an example. There's no entryway into that company through animation, right? Now there's animation studios, there's a Marvel animation, you can actually work on the animation stuff, but to get into Marvel proper as like a comic, like the comic division, the publishing division, there's no animation there except there I was, right? So if it shouldn't have happened, yet it happened. And it's because you pull that bow back and you just fire the arrow and you just keep fucking firing. And over the course of time, you kind of hit that goal. And that's a long-winded way of saying that I think, and I'm kind of curious if it's happened yet. And if not, I mean, you can already see it kind of starting to happen for other projects. Like all of those Hollywood players are now coming into the Web3 space.
Totally.
Right? You going after and chasing them results in like bupkis, like a big old goose egg. But now that you're tying Web3 into an animated product, and that animated product is already created, and you've proven that you have the chops to make it, and now all of the Hollywood agencies are starting to kind of trickle in. I wonder, you know, you now have the leverage, right? You build the community supports you. You've proven you can do the product, and you know, if you build a funding mechanism, then all of a sudden it's what I like about Web3 is that we're giving the leverage back to the creators and the fans, right? It's no longer about purely venture capital or purely about the production, the executive producers that can kind of greenlight your show and kind of like, you know, they said no. So most people in our position as creators or animators would have been like, well, that's it then.
Right.
You know, it's a whole different thing to say you're just going to do it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we've said a bunch of times the show should have been dead 1,000 times. It's like Rasputin. It's the unkillable. It's unkillable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of times throughout that journey where we're like, oh my God, how the hell are we going to make this dream work? And like you said, just through a series of odd events and just keep pushing it, you know, doing our best with it and making these connections. And that's, again, another thing with Web3 is that when we were doing the Hollywood route, meetings like this with people like you and your experience, oh my God, it is a dream now, but it was we would have never expected this to happen like even a year ago.
Yeah.
These meetings were so few and far between. Connections were hard to come by. Nobody really wanted to put their name on anything. But now you come into this space and, you know, you have people with really extensive, impressive resumes like yourself who are happy to talk to us. And it's been a dream.
That's awesome. Yeah. Likewise. I mean,
well, and one thing I would say that's really been cool about Web3, you know, like, I think like one of the more not discussed, most difficult parts of any kind of like artistic pursuit and like what we're doing right now is like, there are days where you're willing to work and you're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Those days, I'm telling you, are the fucking hardest.
Yeah.
Because I'm here. I will do anything for this project. What do I do?
Yeah.
And there's nobody to tell you, like, reach out to this person, go talk to that person. So like, you're spinning your tires. You're sending all this, like, you're sending emails. You're collecting manager lists, agent lists. You're looking up who reps who, and if you know someone that they know, and can you get in a back door somewhere and sneak your way into like this concert? And it's like, no, you can't. So right. I think the coolest thing about Web3 is like, as an independent creator, is like you get to make the rules for now, right? So it's like, we know what we need to do to continue to build this community. We know what we need to do to continue to build this product. We know exactly what we need to do to market and to network and, you know, to make connections with people like yourself and projects like Adult Fantasy. And it's like, we know what we need to do for the first time in 5 years. We get it. And we're out ahead of these like networks and studios who are now entering the space. So for the first time, it's like, we do kind of have that leverage where like, if we execute what we need to do properly, then the idea would be they come to us versus the other way around, which is like, we were executing and doing what we needed to do, but we still needed to go to them and you couldn't go to them. So it's kind of this reverse model that like, at the very least gives independent creators a shot. And I've always said, like, I think that's all you can ask for. you know, is to like create a product, see if people like it, and at least have like a shot. Because like I don't think before there were like I just don't know if it was a fair shake. You know,
Oh no, it was never a fair shake.
Never.
Are you kidding?
right. So I think that's the cool part about Web3 is like you have the opportunity to prove yourself without needing to go beg at these people's feet and try to break down doors that like, you know, without a letter of intent from a famous actor or a showrunner or producer, no way. Not anymore. There's too much money invested in this shit. 1 out of every 10 shows is a hit. They're not giving guys like Joe and I, you know, it's $10,000 a minute. It's $250K an episode, not even including talent. They're not giving us, you know, $5 million for a test season. No way.
Right.
So Web3 is huge. Web3 is a game changer for independent animation and independent creators. And I think that that's kind of the coolest part about all of it.
I think you bring up an interesting point. And I think the other thing that people don't really understand is like when you're selling a show, and I've been down that path like years and years ago. But when you get to those stages where you're talking behind closed doors to people who could greenlight your show, right? Whether it's a pilot or whether it's a season, like people think, I don't think people understand the process. And one of the things that surprised me, just even as an animator, as someone when I went through my own pitch phase where I was going around with pitch Bibles and doing it and getting those meetings, is like, you know, when I learned that the artist or the director or the creator of the show, they get a fraction of a percent. So you're giving up 100% equity. It's not like in startups and in technology companies, you give up a percentage of equity in return for capital. Right. So whether it's a 500K or $1 million or 3 million, it's an exchange for equity in your business, so that they have some kind of control over it, because they're literally giving you hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So it's totally legitimate and fair. Right. If I give you $1 million, I think I should have some kind of say in what you do with that money. It's like really very simple. But in the animation side, it's a little more lopsided, because they're not only are they putting in those hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but it's for a specific purpose. It's specifically for the production. Right. The marketing is almost secondary because it's a completely different tranche of cash. So they take 100% equity and they give you a fraction of a percent. And so what I learned when I was doing all the work, and I did the whole thing. I mean, I did a comic book. I'm looking at it up here. I still have like, I did the character Bible. I had the comic book. I did toys. Like we created a bunch of toys off of it and stuff. And like, and I did the whole 9. And when it got to the part where it looked like it might be greenlit, like when there was actually discussions about it, and I found out what the percentage was, it was so low that I realized basically what was going to happen was I would get my name in the credits because it says directed by or created by, right? So it'd be created by Todd, which is okay, cool. But then you're basically, I'd probably get 6 figures, right? But it'd be like, it was like, which is not, when I was in my 20s, that was a lot of money, but still, it's basically, it was a high paying job, and you were basically going to give up everything you worked on so that you could work a day job for them.
Right. Exactly.
And I was like, wow, like, you mean if it's a hit and it's like all the consumer services products go out, right? All of the kids plates with your characters splashed across it, and the backpacks and the lunch boxes and all of the t-shirts and the apparel, and then all of the labor that you have to put into it, you weren't going to see any of that. None of it. And I was like, wow, this doesn't seem very fair. And I really, and I've always had this, just a personal thing. Like I've always worked for myself because I never wanted to work for anybody else. Like I just don't want to work a job for other people. One, because I suck at it. Like I'm the world's worst employee at that. But I was like, well, if I'm doing all the work, you know, if I'm going to be running a team, if I'm going to be the one doing the animation, if I'm going to be the one in charge of this thing, why shouldn't I get even 5%, even 10%?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't have to be 50-50. Like I understand you got to put money into it, and I don't have a bazillion dollars to put into a show. So it's understandable that they have to own the rights because they have to legal stuff, yada yada. But they've treated creators so poorly for so long that I think you're seeing the flip side now, where you don't have to have venture capital, you don't have to have you don't have to run to the power from these institutions is completely gone. Done. This is why they're coming back in. This is why all of the agencies, they still have that cachet of that brand name cachet, right? And so or cash, whatever you call it. Like, that's why they're kind of running in and they're starting to try to rep all these different projects, because they still have that name brand recognition, and so that the founding team is like, we're partnered with this agency, awesome stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, but you guys, you don't understand. Maybe I don't know if they really understand that the agencies now need you more than you need them.
Totally.
Right?
Well, I remember when Joe and I first kind of began talking about this, like the very first thing that came up was like, okay, like what if the ability for a buyout were to be possible through like the traditional means? Like, what if we had, what if we launched Unethical Cupid NFTs? There are these co-creation passes that allow our community to co-create the show with us. And then what if, like one of these platforms wanted to pick up Roads to Rome? Like, what's our move? And the more we looked at it, the more it's exactly like you said, like it's a wage. When they pick it up, it's a career, but they can shelf it at any point. So instead of, like we decided, obviously, like we're going to keep everything on Web3. Like that's the goal, is to be completely independent, to be our own owners, to be founders. And no matter how big the show gets, to keep it on Web3. One, you retain all the IP rights, but two, it's a legitimate, you're a legitimate founder and business owner, and the wages are, it's profits are better than wages. And that's what it ends up being. If you sell out to one of these companies, like you said, comparatively to what they get, like it's peanuts, and you lose all the IP and you lose all the creative control of the series, basically. So
that was big for us too. The creative control was like a super big thing for us. But
well, because you see all the same shit now on Netflix and Hulu. It's a lot of safe stuff, and it's because they're creating these shows for everybody and also then for nobody. So it's like there are very few shows that are, like only two people who are like, this is the vision that we see for it. Obviously, if you open up a writer's room, the show definitely has room to improve. But at the same time, like sometimes you lose the original vision. I remember I was listening to the Final Space founder talking about how in later seasons, they really lost control of the show and it didn't go in the direction he wanted. And it's like, why would you work 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, and then just give up everything to a studio, especially when the financial incentive is simply not there? Mm-hmm. So Web3 is just totally transcendent in that approach. Like it's a totally different ballgame. So it's cool to be here at the forefront and, just to kind of see what we can do. And the last thing I'll say about that is like, we always kind of talked about our ultimate vision for the project. And obviously like, like we're still scaling up, we're still putting out episodes, but I think ultimately what we'd really like to do is kind of have a like Unethical Cupids Web3 animation incubator. And we'd like to bring like other independent animation series to Web3 market under the Unethical Cupids brand, and have like some sort of governance and vetting and community voting on which ones get picked up, and some sort of revenue sharing. Obviously, like structurally and legally, that's things that we would need to figure out down the line. Yeah. But there's just so much talent out there, and there's so many good shows out there, and there's so many like good creators out there, and they won't get a fair shake in Hollywood, but they might get a fair shake in Web3. But they might need, they might need help onboarding, because we've learned a ton in this process. So I think like our ultimate vision for the show would be to have Roads to Rome really be like our flagship show, but then be onboarding other animators and like independent series and things like that, and kind of bring them to market so that they can kind of realize their dreams and do it in a way that's financially viable. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And I think you said it, to your point, like there's a couple of things you said that got me thinking. And that the first is that, it's an odd paradox in that there's so much money right now in Web3. And you see it on Twitter all the time, right? Someone selling, oh, they sold their monkey picture for $1 bazillion. but at the same time, while there's a lot of money coming in, and there's going to be more of it coming in as more people get into Web3 and get into crypto and get into NFTs, the bar for success for teams is actually lower, especially teams like ours, because whereas if you went straight network, I mean, look what with Seth MacFarlane and Family Guy, right? Like he got the deal. It was on Fox. They launched it. It went for like a season or two or something. I can't remember. And then they were like, oh, it only got a few million viewers, so we're going to cancel it. Right. And it was canceled. It was canceled for like a year or two. And it was the community that brought it back. Right. The community forced Fox to bring it back. And then I think it's been on ever since. Right. I think it's still running. I don't even know.
Yeah. season 19 or something.
Yeah. So it's, the bar was set so high because it was network television and it was advertising revenue, and the show has to run the machine, right?
Right.
And really, for those that don't know, like animation, the whole point of animation is to sell stuff. So animation is purely there for the commercials. Like, that is what it is. The animation is there for something for you to watch and engage with between commercial breaks. So the network makes money off of the commercials and the advertisements. And then the benefit, the reason why animation took off in the first place was because people realized it could basically be product placement for an entire show. Right. So it's not just like a character, an actor holding a Coca-Cola can saying, "Man, this Coke tastes great. Look out." Like it's that the entire show is a commercial, and then the commercials are commercials.
Right.
And so from a marketing standpoint, that's how they think of this stuff. But when you take it off of that, when you pull it out of a network place and you put it on just broadcast, literal broadcast like streaming or internet broadcast, the bar is lower, because now all you need as a team is enough money for marketing to grow the audience, and to make enough sales to scale up to whatever the desired level is, and to pay the bills.
Right.
Mm-hmm. As long as the team is happy and you can pay the rent, and you can scale it to whatever you want to scale it to, and invest a little bit back in the community and invest a little bit back into more merchandise and products. That's a growing business, period. Right.
Well, and it gives you a little bit of runway. It gives you time to grow. Like between the first episode, our third episode is coming out in May, and it is light years away from the first episode. Like, it's easily our best installment, but like, we needed that time to grow, and like you said, like, kind of to cut our chops. And because of this project, and it is like a slower build, that gives us the time to do it versus if we went, like, straight to network. Because the first one's not ready for anything like that, but the third one might be. The third one's damn good, and the animation's better, and the writing's better. Voices are better. So it also kind of gives you that runway on Web3 where, like, you're building your community, you're building your brand, you're forward facing, people are getting to know you, you're giving back to the community, you're making this connection, and like, you're building trust between one another while you're also continuing to get better at whatever product it is you're doing, whether it's gamification or a show.
And you're including the people in the process. Like, you're including, for the first time, we get the ability to include the audience in the process of creation. Like, it's okay to show, you're showing warts and all, which is mastery, I think, in community building, right? You're like you just said, hey, our backgrounds in episode 1 kind of blow, but thanks to your support, now we can do more detailed backgrounds or something. Like, hey, we learned from this episode, and now we're tightening up. And you're expressing to people exactly, they're watching your growth, and that creates an attachment, right? Like, and I think we feel the same way that you guys do, in that we see decentralized creation as the absolute 100% future of creative IP franchise development, right? So for licensing, for publishing, for collecting, for whatever it is that decentralized creation is the future, because it's going to be the group that can move the ball forward and make sure the project is still alive, right? So from our perspective, we're, the whole point of adult fantasy is that we're along with, we call our community adults, right? So like, so the adults in our community, we have all the dumb words. It's great. Let's open a channel called Lip Service. What? Okay, what does that mean? I don't know, but it's just fucking funny.
It is funny.
But basically, what our goal is to help our community members, our adults, develop world-class character-based universe via that decentralized world building and lore creation mechanisms, right? So from my background, just looking at the Marvel universe and being there and understanding how that works and how they built it and helping to build it, I know what they can do, and I know what they can't do, and what they would never, ever, ever do. Right. And from my perspective, that's for me, that's 20th century mythology. Right. That is absolutely, at least even American mythology, if you wanted to get specific with it. So the ability for that to continue and to go on a more global scale is completely possible through Web3 technology, right? And it's up to us to create, to kind of switch the paradigm from this top-down approach where it's coming from up here and we're just going to serve it to you, and this is what you're going to like, and if you don't like it, we're going to chuck it and we're going to give you something else, and maybe you'll like that. It's from this top-down approach to switching that and going bottom up and saying, look, this is the idea, this is our experience, we have the tools and the skill set to be able to do these things. Is it perfect? No, but we have a direction, we have a mission, and with your help we can make it happen. Right. And as long as you stick to the mission and you stay with it and you don't quit and you don't give up, it will attract an audience over time.
Right.
And it launches all boats. And as more people come into that, you know, and you already see it now, you know, even with basic Twitter and basic social sharing, like the minute people are really into your thing, they talk about it. They're really into it. They're like, oh my God, the merchandise, look at that shirt. That's cool. There's a shirt. Oh, I got to go. Like they get into it and they start talking about it and they start sharing it. And that actually bonds the group and raises the boat.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe,
sorry. No, I was just gonna say what you were saying earlier with just the quality and the top-down approach. I think it's honestly really cool to be here pretty early. I know we all joke around about being early, but we still are, to be able to kind of set a level of quality within Web3. You know, no matter what level of experience you have, if you have a quality product, whether it's you know, a comic or an animated series, if you have a quality product and you're able to build a community around it, you're going to have all the success in the world, or all the success you really need. You know, you don't need to go to these, you know, these decision makers or these former decision makers to try to cut a deal where you get screwed. So it's really cool.
And one of the cool things too, I mean, I think maybe the coolest thing is there is an instantaneous feedback loop. So when we do something as an animated series, we get to ask our community, hey, do you like that? Or they'll tell us, you know, like, hey, that character is boring. We're not into that character. We don't care for, you know, like these two characters on screen. Like, obviously, like if Joe and I have vision and we're trying to take it somewhere, okay, that's different. But, you know, like our community is able to tell us exactly who they want. Like, I'll give you an example. In the pilot episode, there's this pigeon, right? And like Joe and I fully intended that pigeon would simply die. And that was it. And then that was it for Pigeon. And then in our Discord, there was like 5 English guys that fucking loved Pigeon. And they called Pigeon, you know? And then these guys are talking about Pigeon all the time. They're like, when Pigeon, when Pigeon. And it's like, Pigeon was a great character. So we'll bring Pigeon.
Like a throw in at the last minute to like make scenes funny. Just to like make scenes funny.
So now these guys fucking love Pigeon. And then it made us realize we fucking love Pigeon. So now we're going to bring Pigeon back. And so it's this instantaneous community creator feedback loop that never existed before. And so it's not really like only in Web3 that they feel like they're part of the show. Like they are part of the show, you know? And we just closed our, we're closing our character pitch in 2 days. So everybody who holds an Unethical Cupid can pitch us a character. We have like a full prompt and everything, how they fit into the show and everything. And then we're going to write that character into episode 4 and beyond. And I'll tell you what, the pitches have been shockingly good.
Yeah, right.
People put so much time and effort into this that originally we were, you know, we're just going to like pick one winner and they would get, you know, like a prize or whatever. But now it really got Joe and I thinking, we're like, okay, all the finalists, we're going to do something special for it because these pitches are so damn good. Yeah. They're worthy of something. We're not going to give it away now because it's kind of cool, but
we want to give it away because it's fun, but
it's fun.
You have to wait.
everyone gets like this Cube Ross co-op, you know, where he's like painting a fake character or whatever. But yeah, man, the feedback is good. The ideas are damn good. And like we have our main character Cornelius, you know, like he's an orphan. And Joe and I were like, well, you know, we never really ironed out exactly what happened to his parents. We had an idea. We were like, let's give it to the community. So right now we have a community writers room and they're telling us what happened to Cornelius's parents and how he became an orphan. And dude, they're doing our job for us.
Yeah,
they're really good. You know, we write it and we have our ideas. But I mean, the collaboration is cool, and it's only going to continue to increase as like we hit our stride. So it really hasn't been done before in traditional routes.
No, it would never be allowed.
Right. It's just top down, buy some merch. That's it.
I mean, you hear it after the fact usually in traditional routes. Like Pickle Rick is like a great example of that. Right. Where Pickle Rick became like a cultural phenomenon after the show. But if you had that sort of thing early on, you can play with it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it also brings the lie to the surface of like that writers or creators are something like, you know, uniquely special. You know, like what we have is like is like tenacity and force of will and just been doing it and kind of refused to stop. But that doesn't mean that if you haven't gotten that professional gig yet, if you're not a professional writer or quote unquote professional, doesn't mean you don't have talent. Right. Like I think, and just growing up and kind of going through the kind of the war of becoming a professional animator, becoming a professional, startup builder, technologist, all that kind of crap. Like over the years, so many people kind of fall out, and they fall out because they get disheartened or they tried to go for that. How many animators, directors, creators do a pitch for a cartoon? The cartoon gets turned down or never gets looked at, or they never even get a response. And so they just say, fuck it. And they just go back to their day job, or they go do something else. They put the pencil down and they go do something else.
Right.
It's what happens to most people, right? You write 30 scripts and you're pitching for a job as a writer or something, and no one ever gets back to you, or you finally get a meeting and they're like, and someone says, this sucks. And you instantly take it personally, and then you go away and you're like, well, I must suck then. Because it's such a personal expression of the creativity is a personal expression. And so we take it to heart and we take it personally. And I think and we're seeing the same thing in our group. We're doing lore creation contests, and people are already making up stories. We have a character called Heinous, which is
sounds dirty. It sounds dirty for some reason.
I don't know why. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see it. I don't see it. He's a combination. I combined He-Man with Prince Valiant, and then another He-Man character called Mecha Neck, which is just a long neck. Anyway, awesome. Veiny, it's kind of a veiny neck, but we'll just leave it at that. But these characters, people gravitate towards for us, and we have a couple other characters that have a lot of like a fan. Like there's some people in the community that are like fans of these certain characters, but for whatever reason, right now, like the Heinous fans are hardcore. Like they're real serious about this character.
I think I'm a Heinous fan now. I don't know what
Heinous is wicked, man. Heinous is wicked. The Heen, they're already coming up with this like a clone sister, and which I can't pronounce. I'm not gonna say the names that I've been suggested for that, but it's been crazy. And I think you see the same thing with the pigeon. It's like, okay, well, this was a throwaway thing, but it for some reason it hits. It hits, and there's life to it, and you can't predict it. And this is why you just keep creating and keep doing. And I think one of the other things that's interesting is that, to your point, Joe, like about being early, we really are. Like, it seems like there's so many people in the space, and there's like money, this, and like, so there's a million different NFT projects and 10 million different token coins and all that kind of crap. But the reality is, I think I saw like a statistic that says something like, there's something like 330,000 wallets that have NFTs in it or something.
Really?
Yeah. We're not talking about millions and millions of people. No, you know what I mean? Like Coinbase had millions of signups, but those aren't people that have NFTs. Right. We're think about it when we're like 10x or 100x. Right. And so I really believe that it's the projects like ours where you see people where you just make the decision that this is what you're going to do, and you're just going to stick with it, and you're going to do it. Right. Totally. There's going to be there are so many projects that and you're going to see a wave. Like, we're now coming into a wave of venture capital. So, and there's nothing, it's not negative. It's not a pro or con. It's just kind of it's just a different beast. So you're having all of these startup founders come in, and they coming from the startup world. There's a system in place. It's like, okay, so we're going to create the MVP, the minimum viable product. We're going to go through a pitch. We're going to raise some cash. Maybe you get the investors to actually buy out your mint so that the mint has a successful buyout. That's happening a lot nowadays. You're like, wow, they went from 0 to 85,000 people in the Discord, and they minted out in 30 seconds. How did that happen? Well, there's a lot of ways that can happen. Some of it, and none of it is necessarily, negative. It's just a different model. Right. There are very successful projects out right now that if you look at the history of the buyers of the NFTs, like, who would buy something for 20 ETH? Like, and why is that the only NFT in their wallet ever? Well, there's a reason. right? Because it's just a different group of people coming in. It's an investor class coming in to support the project and kind of take a little bit of that equity ownership. And so as these businesses come in to pitch, whatever their pitch is, whether it's an animated show or whether it's a private alpha group or whatever it is, the trajectory for traditional startups is that if it doesn't hit a percentage of return for the investor, it goes away. Right. Because startups have there's two options for a startup. You either go IPO, which is go public, right? Or you get bought, which is an exit, or you go away, which is you're done. That's it. So 3, I guess. You go away, you get an exit, or you go public. And so but we as a creative class are now in a different space where I have no intention of exiting. My exit will be my death. Right? Hopefully long time from now, right? I still have lots of comics to buy and read and draw. But there's no exit, right? And there's no going public. That's not really something that I care about, right? What I care about is growing something to a scale where when I'm done, right, whether I'm like 85 and I'm just like, fuck it, I can't do this anymore. Like, when I call it quits and I'm in that old age home, there's a complete platform and a system that's built so that new kid, that new 18-year-old, that 16-year-old, that 20-year-old can come in and say, I have a really cool idea. I want to present it to this open, welcoming group. And if I bust my ass, if I work hard and I put in some sweat equity, right, my idea has a chance in hell of getting a fan base, having a community of support, and taking it through the process of the animation, the comics, the apparel, all that whole system is built so that people can come in and go through the process, and they can leave, or they can stay and grow within the same thing. Whatever it is, it's a welcoming place to get educated, to learn, to understand how to grow a brand, understand how to grow a business, understand how to take your creation to the next level, and have the support of a community that's ready, not just to give you like an applause for it, but actually support with money so that you can continue on with it. And when you talk about an incubator, I totally see that. Like we're absolutely in alignment there, I think.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal. To be early here is to be fortunate, and I think we're trying to blaze a trail that makes it a little bit easier for other creative people who are willing to work super hard to be successful. And I think that there are a lot of people like us in the space, and I think by the
space too. We've seen plenty of really talented animators who are in the YouTube realm, just doing YouTube series that we've become friends with just because they're super quality shows, but they don't get the fandom they deserve, to be honest. So being able to, extend an olive branch to those people and, bring them into the space and allow them to create and not have to go through all the headaches we did, would be really cool to do.
There's always headaches. There'll be new headaches, but at least it'll be like a more viable trail where it's like, at least you'll have a shot, and then I think you'll have other Web3 projects where like they'll start lending like, animation support to someone who's like, a comic illustrator. And then now you have these projects, these Web3 projects that can partner up and really begin to collaborate and create on levels that you weren't able to do with the big boys, because I reached out to Titmouse for an animated teaser for a minute, and because I just didn't know what I was doing earlier.
What was the quote?
$250K for a minute. A minute. I'm a
1,000.
I was like, I guess we'll never see anything animated ever. But then you figure it out. So it's all part of the process.
Yeah, totally. But that's like I said, it's part of the process, part of like understanding where you can maneuver and kind of fit in, and it gives you goals. Because you know what? Look, you have a successful sellout, or you grow and you have 2 or 3 successful sellouts, and all of a sudden $250K for a minute, if you choose to spend that, it becomes not that bad.
Right. Yeah. It's cool. It's a hell of an experiment we're all involved in.
It really is. It's a hell of a ride, man. Do you guys, let's check out some chat. Let's see what some people in chat are saying here.
Cool.
I see Pigeon Talk.
Yep. Nax Murphy says Unethical Cupids, baby. Massive bamf. Tony, what's up? What's up, Cupes?
What's up, Tony?
Doge Vibes says, love this. What's up, Doge? We got April saying I am doing Taco Tuesday as well. Let's see. Coffee, what's up? Hey y'all, what's up? Nat says Fairly Odd Parents is one of the most profitable shows for the network that owns it, and they run 15 to 15-minute episodes each. Yeah, exactly. It's like 10 minutes plus commercials.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
A Predator cartoon too.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Doge says I want to see that stand up.
I got some
clips.
There's some clips floating around on YouTube.
That's right. Oh, they like the merch. Doge likes the merch too. See, that's what I'm saying. Get that merch. Everybody, go.
We made this. This actually has our old character on it, I think.
Yeah, that's Paul.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
these are 4 years old now. These are how old these are.
That's why they're so comfy, though.
Sometimes you got to do it. You know, Ryco made these shirts to kind of keep me going in a tough time. And we were like, "What are we doing with this fucking show?" Shirt, relax.
Here's a t-shirt. Keep working hard.
Yeah. Awesome. Crispy says, "Hey Todd, Joe, and Ryco. What's up, Crispy?"
What's up, Crispy?
Crispy says, "Glad to hear Professor Centaur became a main character. I can't imagine another character saying, 'Bring the boom boom,' with the same impact." Yeah, the writing on the show, on that pilot, is fantastic, guys. I gotta say, it's pretty. I know you guys are getting better and all that, but I was pleasantly surprised with the wit and the sharpness of it.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Yeah, and then he says, "Nah, you're not ready to bring the boom boom." What's up, Hype? Hype says, "Do or do not. There is no try."
Yeah.
Oh, and Todd speaketh the truth. Whatever I was saying, I'm sure it was legendary. Just kidding.
Absolutely.
Joe says legendary interview right now. There you go. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you get a couple of founders in, just some teams in and that are open and willing to talk about it, because this stuff isn't easy. I think it's when you see all these other things drop and like the website is slick and the NFT looks dope and you get it and everything is popping in the Discord. You just have this, outside looking in, it's like, oh, it just kind of, this is the way it is. Behind the scenes, like everything is on fire. And you're just like, how the hell do we do everything we need to do? Like when Ryco, when you said, like, you kind of wake up some days and you're like, I don't know what to do. And you just have to, it's not because there's nothing to do. It's because the thinking is, I have 7 days of work to do and I have 7 hours to do it.
Exactly.
What do I do right now?
Right? We got a list this long the other day and we were just like staring at it like that.
That's right.
Then you're like, maybe if I section it off. So you section off, you're like, nah, it's worse. It's worse.
Yeah, wasting 3 hours sectioning it off.
Yeah, my Trello board is ridiculous. Like everything, I manage everything through Trello, and it's like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Nack says we can finally invest in y'all without needing to be an accredited investor. 100%. That's exactly right. Ray just says, that's right. Ray just says, sup folks. What's up, Ray? Just welcome. Let's see. Let's get some Nack says the internet freed the flow of information. Blockchain will free the flow of value. Oh, that's gold right there.
I love that.
That's right. 100%. Master Chief. Welcome, Master Chief. Get the likes up. That's right. Hit the like button, subscribe, share this. Let's get the word out about Unethical Cupids and this team, and let's share the love because these guys are actually doing it. Like they're one of the few projects that has literally every project has the animated show on the roadmap, but these guys actually did it. Right? They actually said they actually did it, and they did it first, which is pretty badass.
Thank you.
It was totally planned that way. 100%. Nexus Pigeon will not die. R. Kenny?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, actually. Yeah.
Long live Pigeon.
Yeah.
April says, I don't like birds at all, but pigeons can stay. Nack says, wouldn't it be awesome to see him die over and over again then?
Nack, I actually kind of love that.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound?
No, it's cruelty to the pigeon. And then Massive says, it's a stunt pigeon. Willie D. Did someone say heinous?
I gotta see this heinous.
You gotta see this. Oh, you see what you did there. So you gotta see this heinous.
No.
Do we need to pull him up real quick?
Yeah, let's pull him up.
Just don't pull him out.
All right, let me whip him out real quick. Oh.
Yeah, whip out heinous.
Okay, give me
We'll
one
get
second.
kicked from YouTube.
Let's see, where is he? There he is. Okay. I learned to have a shortcut for like all these characters. All right. So I'm going to share the heinous. Protect your eyes from his brilliance. So
that is incredible. God. My God.
That's so funny. Look at his haircut at the top.
Oh, I'm dying.
So yes, the mighty Heen.
Mighty Heenus. That's fucking hysterical.
Heenus full 100x in size.
Oh my God.
Oh, Dusty says
Really my father-in-law, right?
It actually, weirdly enough, the face, I didn't mean this to happen, but weirdly enough, his face actually reminds me of my stepfather.
Rage drawing.
That's right. Yeah, pretty much. I'll show you, Dad. April says, what the whole fuck? So you see, you just have to have a sense of humor with this stuff. You know what I mean?
So
you just got to have a sense of humor with it. And I think that's what it's about. You know, one of the things that and I'm sure you guys have come across is like, I think one of the things that makes me love the NFT space is when I got in early last year, there was such an inherent sense of humor about everything. Right. Like, you know, CryptoPunks was huge. And if you look at that, I mean, it was like 8 pixels on a square.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the most basic shit ever. But it's brilliant. And it took me a long time because I was like, that's crap. I had that guttural like reaction to it. Like, what the fuck is that? And then I kind of realized that, it really grew on me over time, you know, and the same thing with Bored Ape Yacht Club. I was like, oh my God,
you know, it's like part of that satire of the community in general.
Yeah. I think maybe it's my own bias towards a little bit of humor, but I really think that projects that have a sense of humor baked into their DNA, no matter how serious anything gets, like, you know, it's like, I think you can take it far, you know.
Totally.
Like one of the things that I love is, and what we're talking about as a team here, is that, you know, we have these characters and they all have, some of them turned out to be kind of like serious, and that they feel like straight out of a comic from the 90s or something. And then others like Heenus went full whack. Like I'll show you one more.
Yes, please.
Chat. Okay, let's bring chat into this. Chat. Should I show, if I was going to show another character, what should it be? Should I show, if it's a humor character, I could show Subdued, I could show Finger Blaster. Any ideas?
My new favorite comic.
Let me show you the Finger Blaster. Not so. Dusty says not Subdued. Don't do it. So Subdued it is. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Let me zoom back out to reset it to 100%.
Finger Blaster sounds like a South Park hero.
Yeah. He kind of is a South Park hero.
Yeah.
So here, let me zoom in.
The nipples.
Terrible. That is, the details are excellent too.
The GIMP.
Yeah, you know, well, he changes into a sub when he gets splashed with water. And the thing about being a sub and into this kind of thing is that, you know, when you go to rescue somebody and you jump in the water, you're face down, so he can't really do it for that long.
Is there like I assume he has like a nemesis who's like dominant or something?
Probably. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. Here, I'll show you one more because I don't want to hog all the stuff here, but Knack said Finger Blaster, so I'll show Finger Blaster and then we can we can do something else because I don't want to.
Finger Blaster for sure.
All right. So Finger Blaster.
I haven't laughed as hard as that he is. I have a friend from college who looks like this.
So he's probably like, you know, he's like from Daytona Beach or something.
Yeah, exactly. I went to school in Tampa, so it's right.
Yeah.
The tan.
He does look like Nathan.
Exactly. You knew exactly who I was talking about.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
We have a lot of fun, you know.
That is so cool.
It must have been hilarious coming up with these character designs. Holy shit.
You know, I spent way too much time on my character designs.
How many total characters are there?
25.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
and then we have others that are like more like, I guess, not serious, but like more that, you know, they kind of come out however they come out. You know what I mean? So we have a character that's kind of like a Nick Fury character. We have a character that's called a Primordial. That's like a giant, almost like a Fantastic Four, old school Fantastic Four monster, you know?
Gotcha.
And so it kind of goes, you just, you know, it was one of those things where April says, why does it look like a dominatrix slave dildo? Well, that's, you know, episode 2.
God.
We actually had a great question here from Doge Vibes about if you could cast any talent as a voice actor in Roads to Rome, who would it be?
Oh, go for it. That's a great question.
Great question. Ryco, you wanna field that one? I have some you in mind we've talked about, but
I'll be totally honest. I always would have loved for John Mulaney to play Cornelius.
Yeah.
I love John Mulaney. I love his voice. He's got that kind of childish voice, but he's so good. And I'm a huge John Mulaney fan. So if I could have anybody come on board for any role, I'd probably say John Mulaney for Cornelius.
Yeah, I agree with that. We might actually have an opportunity to actually have someone come in for Cornelius. So
yeah, we'll see. We can't really get into it right now.
Yeah, I can't get into it, but
that's awesome.
It's kind of up in the air. So I know Doge Vibes is Snacks.
Yep.
From Gimmicks. What's up, Snacks?
Yep. What's up, Snacks? How you doing?
And another idea we had in terms of like voice acting stuff is almost like if we get into this position, that South Park thing where they Family Guy thing where they bring in like a talent to do like kind of a one-off character. You know, sometimes a random character will come in on Family Guy and it's voiced by like, you know, whoever, Steve Buscemi or whatever, you know what I mean? So we always had ideas for like little one-offs like that would bring people in for, but yeah.
Awesome. Knack actually has a good question too. Says, how do y'all respond to reviews, criticism, the when? That's a great question.
You always just say soon. Nah.
No, I mean, honestly, whenever you receive criticism, there's two types of criticism. There's criticism that nails it and you already know it's a fault, or it points it out and you're like, I haven't really thought about that. I pushed it to the back of my head and you just uncovered it. Or it's a hater, and haters are pretty easy to ignore.
We don't have, I'll be totally honest though. We don't have anybody in the community who's ever really like super.
No, I'm talking more like general outside of the NFT sphere. Occasionally you'll get something that floats in, but we don't get much of that. Yeah. Most of the reviews are like very legitimate, like either good ideas. It's nothing like heavy-handed criticism ever. It's usually typically good ideas that we honestly always discuss and think about.
Yeah. But, you know, like when it comes to like, when are we doing things, like we basically do production updates in our Discord weekly. We tell people where we're at. We tell people, you know, what to expect in the process of animation and where we are in that animation, you know, and we just kind of keep people posted. We learned the hard way actually for episode 2, because we had a couple delays. We had to redo a couple of the rigs after we had already gotten like 4 or 5 scenes in, and we had already done like a anticipated release date. So now we're like, once it's locked and it's, you know, about to be shipped off to sound design, that's when we're going to give people like, you know, harder dates, because we had to push back like a few weeks after the second one, or during the premiere of the second one. So now we're just getting better at communicating. I think a lot of the Discord stuff and a lot of the community stuff is just communication. Like it's just effectively communicating. And, you know, if you can do that and you're upfront with people and you're not like stringing people along and, you know, jacking people around, like people around. yeah, never mind. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people have been pretty cool about that stuff, and honestly, most of the NFT community like pretty much is. So
yeah, I for us, like, I mean, speaking personally, like just having done this for decades, I kind of have like a nice hardened jade shell, that surrounds me at all times. So I kind of, it doesn't really phase me as much. I mean, I actually appreciate criticism and all that, as long as it's constructive,
right.
Someone that just says, you fucking suck. It's like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But most of the time, even with that, like when it doesn't, thankfully it doesn't happen too often, but when it does, even if you come back and say, well, what could I have done? I just always try to take the high road and be professional about it and be like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't like that. What was it that you didn't like? And a lot of times when that happens, you'll actually get a really good response. Oh, well, I really didn't like how you treated, this character, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what would you have done differently? Thanks for your response. Like you can, a lot of times that straight up criticism, good criticism, those people are actually supporters. They're just reacting negatively because they actually like what you're doing. Right. There's certainly in Web3 people that hate your guts because you're in Web3 and it's like NFTs bad, or something.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, and honestly, I think a lot of it also has to do with conviction. Like we had, when we started pitching and talking about our technology, we had some influencers in the space, like privately they email and text, and they were like straight up, like, I don't like what you're doing. They thought it wasn't Web3 for whatever reason. Like, I don't know, they had some kind of misconception about what we're doing. And it's just like, well, you try to explain yourself, or you try to have like a conversation about it, and you just kind of keep it like that. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone's going to love your stuff, and that's okay. You know what I mean? We had the same thing. We had the same thing with the name Adult Fantasy. Like it's funny because I obviously we know what adult fantasy sounds like. Right. And everyone's like, well, why the hell would you change that name? I had to convince a lot of people that we should use the name Adult Fantasy, because they were like, it sounds like porn. People are not going to like it. And I was like, yeah, but a couple things. One, I mean, there's so many reasons to do it. The least of which is because everybody in Web3 happens to be an adult that's collecting JPEGs of monkeys. Like, if that's not an adult, grown-up adult fantasy, like, I don't know what is.
Right.
And then I remember, because I'm old, like I remember the same thing happening with Adult Swim. Like I was there when Adult Swim launched. I was working there, and when that came out, the articles that came out were like people didn't look at what it was; they just reacted to the name, right? And Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, to their credit, used that as leverage. Right. It became a spot for like the secret animation stuff. Right. The cool kids were over here in the Adult Swim pool. Right. And it was because like you had articles talking about, well, I don't know, porn on television. Like, have you ever watched it? So so we had the same thing. Like I've had people, early days, I would kind of reach out and talk, and people like, well, I would never partner with that kind of filth, like all these pro clutchers. And I'm like, where am I? Am I in a convent? Like, what are we talking about? Like, and it would make me laugh, because it's like who in their right mind, when you think about it, who in their right mind would go into Google search and be like, dear Google, I would like to, can you serve me some adult fantasy for the evening? Thank you. Like that's not what you do in a Google search. There is no XXX hardcore anything that has the word adult fantasy, unless you're looking at like some 1-800-1900 commercial from the 1990s from like Up All Night or something, with Gilbert Gottfried or
fantasy.
something. You know what I mean?
I love the name, to be honest with you, because the first time I saw it, I remembered it.
Yeah. Right. Same.
The moment I saw it, I was like, oh, what is this? Oh, I knew exactly what it was. We honestly had a little bit of that with like Unethical Cupid. We launched in October.
You've got the word in it, right? Even the word unethical is like, well, I had blah, blah, blah.
Everyone's like, this space is a scam.
Yeah, there were so many rug pulls at the time, still going on, but at that time specifically, it was like when people were becoming nuanced to that type of thing, and they're like, unethical, what in the heck? And it's like, well, no, it's based around the character. It's a wordplay on Ethereum.
The character is unethical. He's a
hitman. The character is unethical. Yeah,
right.
But people get it. The people you need to get it. So
yeah, that's awesome. We got a couple more questions here. This one's from April. She says, how do y'all handle writers or character block? That's a great question.
I don't know. I mean, Ryco and I kind of attack writing in like an interesting way where, I mean, I don't know if it's interesting. I guess it's pretty boring where we throw all our ideas onto a big board and we kind of like we first will like lay out what we want in an episode, like the ABC, just the whole story arc. And then, characters that we kind of want to include in that, and just doing that simple thing of like where we want to go kind of helps with that writer's block. We don't have too much writer's block, I'd say. We have a lot of dead end scenes that we might have to go back and just start fresh on. But once we have like the layout of where we know we're going in the story, it's about just like putting the pieces and the characters in the right place and making each of those scenes basically like a funny sketch by itself that moves the story along. Every scene needs to be a really funny sketch, but it also needs to give you enough information and be relevant enough to move the story to the next point it needs to be at.
Well, I would say though, one thing I don't know if it's really like writer's block, but we're really quick to throw things out if they don't work. If we really believe in something, then we'll sit on it for quite a while and make it work and figure out what's missing. But, if we sit on a scene or we sit on like a plot or like a beat for too long and we can't figure it out, and, it's not funny as we're writing it and rewriting it, we'll just throw it out. We'll throw it out and we'll go in a little bit of a different direction that still stays within that frame, because we don't want to get stuck on like, we don't want to get stuck on something trying to make it like an A+ when, like an A- will do. It'll be funny and it'll move the story along, because then you can really sit and you can go over things a million different times and harp on shit over and over and over. And then it gets stale. And the funny thing is, like, when we're writing it, if we're not laughing, it's not going to be good.
Right.
Like we have to be enjoying it as we're doing it. So when it comes to writer's block, character block, it's more so like sometimes scenes like in our head, they really, really work. And on the whiteboard, they really, really work. And then when we're putting it in dialogue wise, like it just doesn't happen. Right. And so we'll try to format it, over the course of a couple of days. But if we can't get it, we'll just move right on and we'll find something else. And it's always better when we do that. So that's kind of like more so the writer's block that we have is like particular scenes that we were set on using that simply aren't being like, we just can't execute them properly. And then at that point, we trash them, we move on. We usually replace it with something, more original. So yeah, that's how I'd probably say that.
And I would say for us, like there's certain times for me, there's so much that you have to do that if you get stuck on something, then the first thing for me and for us is to recognize that we are stuck on something, because what happens is you don't know you're stuck at first. You just start spinning your wheels, and then it takes a minute to be like, wait, I gotta, this is not working. And then honestly, it's just sometimes just taking it and putting it on the shelf for a second and continuing on with the next thing. If you're, whether it's a character or a comic panel or a script, we had a character, I had an idea for a character called Trash Panda. And Trash Panda, like I had it in my head that this character was going to live in the sewers, like if you guys know the Morlocks from X-Men, basically the Morlocks are the sewer dwellers, and they live under the city. And they had kind of like this punk rock leader called Callisto. Anyway, and I was like, well, I want like this sewer punk rock character that I kind of want that my own Callisto, but I envisioned this character looking like Adamant, right? So like Liberace, kind of Adamantish, like very like elegant, covered in shit, basically.
Right.
And I drew this character so many times and it didn't work. Like I drew it once and I was like, this sucks. And I just kind of put it aside and I had more characters to do. So I kind of kept working. And then I came back to it and I drew it again. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't get it. All the way to the point where I had like 2 characters left. And I knew the last character that I actually drew for the set was the character called the Primordial, because he was going to be the big baddie. And I was a little nervous to draw him because I wasn't really sure. Whereas with Trash Panda, I knew what I wanted and I couldn't draw it. With Primordial, I had no clue like what I wanted. I had no idea. And so I had there was a stuck. So one day after drawing, I said, well, I'm going to just do Trash Panda first, because at least I've had a couple of crap drawings. And finally I just sat down and I just started just grinding, and I just nailed it. Like I finally got him, and I was like, I was like, oh hell yeah! Like he turned into this weird like Liberace penguin meets like adamant. Like here, do you mind if I show him?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like if I should
it.
talk about it, let's see. Let's see Trash Panda here. Come on, click the link. So,
excuse me.
Yeah, share my screen. Give me a second. So,
I love it.
That's hilarious.
Right? I'm like, yes, I finally, like, if you knew how many times I drew this character skinny and he was too good looking and he actually looked too much like Adamant, I was like, it doesn't work.
Oh,
you know, there was no character to it, you know?
Right.
And I was
like, look at that little nose. I love the nose.
Oh yeah, he's got like the little, he just has this like real, like, kind of like this arrogant, like he knows he's the shit, but then of course he's like covered in garbage.
The jacket's great.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. It's so good.
But thank you, man. Thank you. But I think that's the answer, is like you just kind of like put it on the shelf and you just kind of say, you recognize that you're stuck and you kind of like keep going.
Yeah.
Carrots has a good question. Carrot says, do you think there are any challenges with getting genuine feedback from people when financial incentives are involved?
I think they're more blunt. You know? I think they feel like they're a part of the project, and I think they'll let you know what they like and what they don't. You know, I think if anything, it kind of emboldens people. I don't know what you guys think, but
I agree totally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I see people, Yuga Labs made $5 million and they trash the shit out of them on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, what?
No, it's not involved in the project. They're like, no, it's good. It's good. You know, they would kind of hold back, but as soon as you buy in, you hear more.
Yeah, I think it works both ways. I think people are more willing to give genuine feedback because they have a stake in it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that ties into the criticism, right? You have to be, if you're going to do a decentralized project where you're like, hey, the community can help build this, you better be willing to accept some feedback. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it's also on the positive side too, because when people, so when there's something that they don't like, when the community doesn't like, and there's a financial incentive or they're really tied to it, you're going to hear about it. But on the flip side, when the community is actively creating and they're excited about what's happening, whether you made it or whether they did it or whether it was a collaboration, everybody knows about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody's like, oh my God, you should check out what these guys are doing. I helped make this. Like, right. And I think that's kind of the system. So it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, but I think it's a net positive, at least for us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever do it another way. Like after, you know, ever. Massive says that the way to handle a writer character's block is to kill the character.
Which we've done before too.
That's right. That's right. Nax says, when you draw or animate, do you see it in your head or is it as you go, it develops?
I think that's a question for you, I believe.
For me?
No.
For me?
Yes. Well, we don't animate. So I mean, in regards to our characters, we, you know, basically laid out, or we wrote like really specific episodes, or episode 1 kind of set that like world view and a lot of the lore involved with it. So we knew where we wanted, like the type of characters we wanted. We had their voice figured out and like generally what we wanted them to look like. We actually even used pictures of our friends who we thought looked like, we want our character to look like this with this hair, this type of muscle. Like we used actual pictures taken from Instagram of our friends.
Facebook. That it was like. Back in the day.
Facebook, yeah. So, and then when we worked with our animator, it'd send different stills and all that until we kind of had what we thought that character would look like.
And by the way, our animator, his name is Benjamin Leffler. We always try to shout him out. He's a absolutely terrific animator. He's super talented. He does everything. And we wouldn't be anywhere even remotely close to where we are without him. So if Ben's on or Ben sees it, we love you. And Benjamin.
truly a gem.
It's incredibly special to find one person who can do an entire show.
He's a one-man wrecking crew.
Yes.
It's truly baffling what he can do, and even like we've got to watch him progress too throughout the past year, with like how he's updated his rigs and hair movement. If you've seen episode 2, you can see the difference in like Cornelius, for instance, his little afro like jiggles when he moves a certain way. All these little specifics that he's able to do, and it's only one guy, and then we have a background designer who does some backgrounds, but
only a few. Only
throughout. Yeah, it's essentially been one-man wrecking crew. But again, that's part of the reason for Unethical Cupids. We can get him help, and
and also, luckily we've had enough success with the project where like we are bringing on a second animator to help right now and speed up production time and turnaround time. We're actually like vetting candidates right now, and we'll probably make a decision here in like the next 2 weeks. So like we're doing everything we can to continue growing, and he needs help. It's not fair to him. It's a ridiculous amount of work. And he's really talented and he's really good at what he does, but we got to get him some help. And then hopefully the next step would be kind of to get a composer and really begin to give the show like some original flavor on that end.
That's awesome. So to answer the question on my side of things, the art side, if I'm writing a script, because I'm more visual, if I'm the one writing the script, I actually go straight to thumbnails, right? Straight to storyboards, basically. So I'll have some notes, and I'll kind of create like a little short plot. And that's if I'm writing it, if I'm not using, having a writer work with me. And then I'll go shot to shot to shot to shot, and I'll just go straight through, right through, because thumbnails, you can scratch them out, you can chuck them, you can throw them away. And that'll give me at least a draft that I can chop up. And I mean, I'll use scissors and tape and just kind of reorganize and all that kind of stuff. That's and awesome. Then, because it's easier than Photoshop, it's faster, right? I mean, certainly you can draw digitally, but it's even with digitally, if you're cropping it and you're having to move it, it's actually, there's something about just using tape and cutting and just laying it out and moving it so much faster hand-wise. Because I can move something around and then sketch it out, move it around and sketch it out, like so much faster than having to hit Command Z or copy paste, or like it's actually faster to do that process manually. And then if I'm working with a script, if someone's handing me a script, then the process is similar, but slightly different in that I'll read the script once, and then as I go through it a second time, certain scenes will start to pop in my head, right? So characters jumping off the roof, and it does a flip and lands on the other side. And I'll say, and I'll for some whatever reason, that image will pop in my head, and I'll be like, okay, so it'll be kind of like a maybe bird's eye view, kind of looking down, or whatever, 3/4 looking up, I don't know, but I'll start to sketch that out in kind of the margins of the script. So as I'm reading the script, I'm kind of taking thumbnail like notes, and so those become the cornerstone. Oftentimes they become the cornerstone shots of whatever the scene is, or whatever the comic is, or whatever the page is, depending on where it fits. And then I kind of start to fill in the gaps, right? So it's not one way that works. It's just sort of multitudes, right? If that makes sense. Different types of processes for different processes that come in, right? Yeah. Let's see. April says, what's the process when it comes to giving characters their voices? And how do you deal with a voice that doesn't work for the characters?
Yeah, you want to answer, Rich?
Yeah, go for
it. Sure. Let me read it here again. Yeah, again, when we're writing a character, like we have our characters basically set. Even like when we know that we might have a new character for episode 4, for instance, we'll kind of have an idea of who that character is. And when we talk about it, we start doing the voice with each other and like try to find, like when we're coming up with the idea generation of it. He kind of sounds like this. He's gruff, and you can kind of write him to be gruff. You know what I mean? With cartoons, I feel like it's kind of very blatant. Like the way they look almost shows you their voice in a lot of ways. The way they speak, even if it's that big thing where it's like a big guy with a tiny voice or stuff like that, you can kind of create like the story and the character around that voice. And then of course, like we have to decide who's going to voice that based on, who the character is, whether Ryco and I can do it, or whether someone in our team can do it, or if we're going to need to bring on someone new. Luckily, we have a voice team that has like a ton of range. Ryco and I, not as much range as some of them, but we still have very decent range, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, if I guess for the second part of that question, we'll have sometimes for like secondary characters, we'll have maybe 2 of our voice artists record the same lines. And then maybe Ryco and I will do the same line again, and we'll listen to it all back to back to back. And whichever one kind of captures the essence of that character, we'll go with it. So there's been a bunch of times we've had multiple people read for 1 or 2 characters. Yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, guys, this has been excellent.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
Go ahead.
It's been wonderful getting to meet you guys and know it. And so now the party's just getting started, right? So we've got a couple things going on. So what do we get? So let me get this straight. We're gonna hop over to the Adult Fantasy Discord and we're gonna screen episode 2, correct?
Yeah. I don't know. We can try to screen it. You know, the last time we did the screening through the Discord, we just had the Discord owner just pull it up on YouTube and screen share. So do you want me to just send you the link? Would that be easiest?
Yeah, for sure. We absolutely can. We'll hop over into Discord and we'll set that up.
Okay,
and
cool.
you can send it to me directly through our little DM chat or whatever.
Okay, cool.
And I'll see if Dusty can help with that because he's way better at it at this point than I am. So
Okay.
But guys, thank you so much. Yep, that's right. Crispy says a post YouTube viewing party. That's right. Absolutely. We love our after parties. We actually sometimes or oftentimes now in the evenings we'll do game sessions too. So maybe we'll jump into a gaming session after a season 2 or an episode 2 preview.
All right.
But guys, thank you guys so much. I will see you on Discord. You guys can hang out here. Everyone else can go to Discord. We'll see you over there in just a few minutes. If you don't know where the link is, there's a link. The link should be in the description below. If you don't see it there for whatever reason, you can always find it inside of one of our Twitter posts. So head over there and we will be over in Discord in just a second. All right. Love you all. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next time.
All right.
Everyone.